back, or I should also say Shemai, or what would you say, Cathy, before I've even introduced you from your part of the
We're
UK?
Kia ora. We're
You're
trying.
fully
No,
Kia ora?
no. We're trying to get the use of Māori embedded in our
Fair enough.
normal workplace, and it's harder for us UKs.
Fair enough. I like running with Shemai. I'm connecting to my Welsh roots, so Shemai Bodadar. With me today, I have Cathy Gillespie. Cathy and I go years back, really. I can't. We'll flush out when we first met. But Cathy, for people who don't know who you are, Cathy Gillespie from Like-Minded Learning. Who are you? What do you do?
Who am I? I work in online learning, so I've got a real passion for learning. I've come from a history of teaching and delivery and training, but moved with the times. So I'm running a company with another business partner to work with anybody in any sort of range to help them take a concept of something that they want to teach into the online world. So often we'll get people who come in and they sort of say, oh, I need to go online. I've been told to go online, or, I need to because that's where the world is now, but I don't know how to do it. So what our business does is it helps them right from that idea all the way through, helping them to build platforms and build content to go on it and get it out. And my focus is particularly on the instructional design side of it, because it's the quality of what you put out. It's not just the fact that you can put it out and slap something up online. Doesn't mean that people learn it and do it. So I focus mostly on the instructional design and the learning and the adult learning theory. And my business partner is the technical guru who can tick the boxes and make clever things happen. So we're a really good complement together.
Nice.
And we've been doing that for probably 9 years now.
Nice. So I remember you started the business. Yeah, I've been in business about 8 years. So yeah, I remember that happening. Yeah, just about. But yeah, clearly originally from the UK. So whereabouts is home in the UK?
Oh, I'm sorry to you. I'm a Brummie from Birmingham.
What?
Yeah, I've carefully tried to cultivate the accent out by living with Geordies and Cockneys, and met and married an Irishman in Scotland, came and lived in London, and then moved out to New Zealand. So the accent's a bit warped, but if you know anyone from, that area, you'll pick up the odd thing that I say.
Yeah.
So yeah, we came out. I mean, to be honest, we were living in just outside of London. I'd got 2 kids traveling an hour and a half into London, but my office was actually 110 miles from my home. So I was traveling to the office with 2 young babies and care, paying £600 a month in childcare. And we just decided that we wanted to change. The oldest was only 9 then. So we said, well, let's do something different. So the danger was my husband let me just go off looking, and I decided we'd come over to New Zealand, and he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything to stop me.
He was thinking maybe move closer to the office, and then next minute you come out with a
yeah.
approach. I've heard New Zealand's lovely this time of year.
When we tell the story, it's like, my thing is, why did you come to New Zealand? It's like, look, I just wanted to break the cycle. I wanted to, not have the travel and the stresses and the hassles of living in London. And when you ask Gary the same question, it's because my wife told me to.
Smart guy. Yeah.
The
happy wife, happy life theme seems to be true.
The oldest boy was 9. I've got 3 boys. The oldest boy was 9. And so we felt we got like 3 years to play with before high school. So it was like an opportunity to do something different. If we didn't like it, we could have just gone back. But never once, not even in earthquakes or mosque shootings or whatever else we've had in Crusher, however, even thought that I would be better off back at home. I mean, it's not like we were living in beautiful countryside in the Lake District or anything like that. We were in a busy £100,000 mortgage, which at the time, I might point out, was pretty huge.
Yeah.
So we came for just really 3 years of doing something different, but we got our residency before we came, because the worst thing could have been find you like it and not be able to stay.
Nice.
So we stayed.
Yeah. And so what were you doing back in the UK?
My history is a bit of a potted history, and it does make sense when you work it through, but I work for the Forensic Science Service.
I feel like I'm a little bit similar to that one, but not quite as cool as Forensic Science.
You say cool, but it has its elements of boredom as well, because, people sort of say, oh, it's so glamorous, so glamorous a career. And I sort of look at them and I say, if you think someone else's used socks and dirty socks and used condoms is glamorous, you've got very different perspective. It's nothing like you see on CSI.
was going
But
to
having
say.
said that, yeah, having said that, what I'd done is I changed over. I started off as a forensic scientist, so I've done the scenes and the scientific side, but then I moved into training. So I was training
Right.
magistrates and police, and I enjoyed the training thing. And then back in those days, we were swapping from it. We had a typing pool to type up your statements. So we got Windows
Wow.
3.1. And then as I changed over, I was looking for something a little bit different, looking to do maybe 3 days a week, not 5 days a week.
Mm.
I don't know whether that actually happened, but that was the concept. But I enjoyed the training side of it. So actually, I became the Forensic Science Services first training specialist. So mostly in helping people to swap to computer-based report writing, Windows, and we swapped over to Windows NT then. You can see how long it is. It's last century. Sorry.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, there was around about 1997 or whatever. I'd swapped over to being a trainer more than I was doing the science side of it,
Yep.
and that just gives me much more of a buzz. It always has.
Wow.
So I was very specific in Microsoft training. So I did that. Then when we came over here, I started working for CPIT, or in the Computing for Free Polytechnic, teaching like applications training, but I then decided I wanted to broaden it. So long story short, I've got broader and I'm focusing a little bit more on the general teaching principles, but in that corporate environment rather than being a teacher in school. I'm kind of bringing the experience of being in corporate together with teaching and making it accessible really for those people who are now forming e-learning teams. It's changed, the environment changed quite a bit over COVID.
Yeah, I bet it has. So yeah, I mean, forensic science. How did you get into that? Like, were you an avid fan of crime and novels and stuff as a kid? And you thought, hang on, actually, I want to be the person that solves all these crimes.
Well, even now, it's if I want to go and see a film or something, I'll say, is there a body in it? As long as there's a body in it, I'm happy. However,
but are you one of those? Are you one of those annoying people who in scene 2 goes, "It was him"?
No,
because my wife does that all the time.
Yeah, married to an annoying person because he looks at it and says they've not got the gowns on, they've not got the masks on, and it's like it wouldn't make for good television if they all were gowned up. I don't know whether you've ever seen Hot Fuzz, the movie Hot Fuzz. At the beginning of that, they're all in their gowns, and they don't know who it is. So I mean, obviously, I had a physiology degree, and then I went and did a master's degree in forensic science because I was interested in that use of science. And then I got a job in the Metropolitan Police Laboratory. So I've been there for it would be 14 years, 10 years of which I was actually doing the analysis, doing the bits and pieces. I mean, little things like I've examined the Queen's bedspread once, little things like that.
Well, hey, you can't just casually gloss over examining. Like, well, come on, what's the story here?
She had an invader.
I mean,
and she
was that in
found
the
the
90s?
bed. Yeah, I mean, it was something a bit later on that we were doing. So she had the guy who came and said, so it's just little things like that. You can say, oh, I did that. And when you look at some of the key crimes, it's really nice to have been a part of that, even if it's behind the scenes.
So for that one, we actually, I don't think we could do this in the lab. I actually need to go to the scene here. I need to go into Buck Palace and need to go into Her Majesty's room and just examine the. So did you? Or
I'll tell you. No, but I will tell you one story about our we had a fire investigation team in there as well, and Windsor Palace went up in flames at one point.
The Annus Horribilis.
Yeah, well, they were examining the room, and it was a bedroom. I don't know if it was her bedroom or whatever. And so, of course, typically in the adult fashion that we do, they were bouncing on the bed, and in walks the Queen.
That's brilliant! Oh my word!
Yeah,
I mean,
it's given us hours of pleasure. Well, what do you say to that?
Yeah, sorry, Mum.
Yeah,
doesn't cut it, does it? Yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
I think it's a sort of business you have to laugh a little bit because it could be quite depressing if you get too serious. I mean, it's like, I remember showing some garments to a victim. I won't go into it. It was a really horrible incident, and she's lucky to be alive. And I said, how do you know these are your, because we were trying to match the scene and all the rest, identify them. And I said to her, how are you, how do you know they're yours? And she goes, well, I wove the fabric that made that jacket, and it's like they then start becoming real people, and she really was lucky to be alive, but she became an advocate, for talking about women's safety and things like that. So I think you just have to put a barrier up that they're not people. For us, I think it's harder for people like pathologists and doctors than it is for a forensic scientist, because usually they're just items of clothing or things like that. But to be perfectly honest, it's a grubby job, and it was more the fact that I'd actually been doing it since I'd left college, and I was about 30 something, and it was like, well, I can do this for the rest of my life, but there's only bigger cases with more exhibits. It wasn't more complex.
Right.
So things like bombings and things are really are interesting to a point, but then you have to spend hours and hours and hours picking fibers off, tapes that are used to wrap and that sort of thing.
Yep.
I mean, it's changed quite a lot anyway, because DNA only came in when I was doing it.
Wow.
And now
Yeah,
you don't even have to see, that was interesting for us, but now you don't even have to see the item and you can get profiles. So not sure it's quite as interesting as it ever used to be.
I think, you clearly did a lot. And so, sometimes it's just time to move on. It's funny, the couple of things you mentioned, though, the hot fuzz. I spent 10 years selling medical devices, so in operating theatres, and people always ask me, "Oh, is it like Grey's Anatomy?" It's like, no, it's more like Scrubs. Generally, the comedy version of any industry is normally way closer than the really highly honed scripted version of it. And a Queen story. One of my former bosses, James Bundy, I don't know if he's listening. If he is, hey James, he bought a Range Rover from the UK. He was all about finding these deals where you could export a car from the UK to New Zealand, and there's some tax deal that you get for importing a used UK car of certain ages. Anyway, when he got the car, he flicked through the logbook, and it had one owner based in Balmoral Estate, and so. He's pretty convinced it was a vehicle that was. And I said to him, "Man, you need to get this thing through an X-ray machine, because there has to be some secret compartments with guns and rockets.
Bulletproof, something.
There's got to be something really, really cool in this car that you just won't find with your eyes." So, fun times. So, you did the forensics, and then so you got into the training, and so you came over with a job, or you just came over here?
No, that's a whole. Yeah, that's a whole other entertaining
let's
story.
go there. Come on, I'm liking. I'm learning a lot about you here today, Cathy. I thought I knew you pretty well.
Yeah, you probably have never asked me this level of detail. So we basically sat down at the computer. We got our residence visa, and we got it in record time. We got it in 3 months. I think that's completely unheard of. So we got the points to get in, and we sat down at the computer and said, "Where should we go in New Zealand?" Because we've never even been here for a visit or a holiday.
Wow.
So it was like Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch. So we decided on Christchurch because it was the right size of city to get a job, but not be as overwhelming. We didn't want to go from big city to big city. So we then just booked a flight. We had 2 weeks in a motel. We had so we flew over here, or our stuff was in a boat coming over. So we had 2 weeks in a motel, no house, no job for either of us. And it was literally a week before we got on the plane that I found out I was pregnant with number 3. That shouldn't have been the plan. So it was like all these plans of, traveling around with the kids and doing all these outdoor activities changed slightly. So it was, and we arrived and people look at me and they go, "You're mad, you're mad." But it wasn't that bad, because we could have gone back. I mean, I'm the sort of person, I never go back to anything. I'd go to something different, and I can never say where I'd go to, because I never would have thought I'd come to New Zealand. But if we hadn't liked it, if it hadn't worked out, all we needed to do is get back on a plane and then move out of London. That's what we would have done. If we hadn't had the opportunity for New Zealand, we'd have gone to somewhere like Yorkshire, which is beautiful to live. And change the jobs. But I'm glad we didn't, because actually the whole forensic science service changed, and it's no longer supported as well by the government as it was. So we'd have had to look for new jobs anyway. But being in training by that stage anyway, it wouldn't have been so hard for me, but it might have been harder for my husband, who was the chemistry side of things. But he's managed it. He's got a job over here as forensic scientist, so he's still using his skills, doing what he wanted to. He's happy.
Oh, very cool.
And there's still a bit of a connection to forensics, so it doesn't quite go. I find it interesting. You can
kind of keep your hand in and just see what's going on.
Just when there's something on the news, it's nice to just know a little bit more about it. But he can't say a lot. But I just feel like I've not lost it completely, the connection, and I still watch. Agatha Christie and Morse and Poirot, so we're good.
Nice, you're all good. You got it covered. Yeah, no, I had a pretty similar story really getting here. I moved over here 2004. I'd lived in Aussie for a year, about a year or so prior to that, met a Kiwi girl in the UK. Her visa was running out. I was on finishing a graduate training program with a large global multinational company, and it was either get married or move to New Zealand. And I thought, I'll give moving to New Zealand a go. And similar kind of mindset. I just figured I'll give it a year. If I can't get a job, or whatever, I'll go and just work on the ski fields. I had a working holiday visa, but my plan was to try and get employment within about 2 months. I mean, I didn't really look for a job in too much earnestly, because I thought I want to enjoy New Zealand and have like, bit like your plan, like just have a bit of a tour around. And then, within a couple of months, got a job. And here I am, however many years later, quite a few years later.
Yeah. Well, I went to the
almost 20.
Polytechnic. And it was like, there was a job going, and it was like, I had the interview and I sort of said, I'd really like the job, but in 3 months' time, can I have 3 months off because I'm pregnant? And they said, can you start on Friday?
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was, I was working for the computing for free there, so
yeah.
I think
sorry, because that was CPIT, isn't it? Which is now
Aotearoa, which is now to Pakinga.
Right. God, keep
up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Or blink and it changes. Yeah. No, I mean, I think the thing for us is, I'm very much shaped by a couple of things in my life. Is one that my dad died at the age of 51, and he had a lot of plans for future and everything. So the one thing I've learned is just don't wait and plan, do it. Because if you tick everything off your bucket list, you just add more things on at the other end. And then the other thing is one of my children was really sick in the UK when he was 7, and it's like you never expect to be in a position where your child might die before you. He didn't. The good news is he didn't. But it's an awakening thing to don't wait. So if you want to do it now. So I think some people say I'm a risk taker, but I don't know whether that's it. It's just I'm just going to do it, and then we can deal with the consequences, because most of the time they're relatively
they're undoable. No, I mean, similar for me. I think going through the earthquakes, that was my big career change movement. It was like, what am I doing? But unfortunately, I just had a good mate of mine pass away in the UK. So shout out to Benji, 45, married with 3 kids, and I've just been starting. I've got a little pad on the floor over here. One of those big A4 sticky pads. I'm just writing down what do I want in life. What could it look like? I'd love for us to have a house in France. I love France, which is why I got my French poster. It's like, life's too short to not think that you why can't I do that? Why can't I go to France for a couple of, I work remotely, I do everything through here. There's got to be a way that we can make that happen, because like you say, 9 times out of 10, if you go and give it a go. I lived in Australia for a year, and there was a guy, Gary Butterfield, I think his name was. He was a friend of the family, this family that I ended up living with, again, just sort of connected my way into living with a family in Australia for a year. And he just said, look, all you got to do is keep smiling and shaking hands and saying good day, and good things will come your way. And I'm like, put yourself out there, just say, hey, I'm here. Most people will rally around and help you achieve the thing that you want to achieve. And I've not had a moment ever in my life where, like coming to New Zealand, I didn't think I'd still be here now. I thought, a year. I remember saying to my parents, I could probably give it a year, get the girlfriend's visa sorted out, we'll be back. I just think, and like you say, there's so much. I was listening to a podcast this morning, taking the dog for a walk, and how many songs are there that have been produced today, just today? And then you go, well, how many songs are there that have been recorded in the history of time? You're never going to be able to listen to all the music. So there's always going to be something more for you to want to go and do. So knock them off. Love it. That's great life advice. So you got the job, you're pregnant, you're in CPIT. What's next on the
well, I've jumped sort of a couple of things. So I had a sort of a several 2-year stints when I first started. So I was 2 years at the Polytechnic, few changes going on there. I then got a job as training specialist at Christchurch City Council. So that was an interesting expectation, because it's like 2,000 plus people and one training specialist. The math doesn't work. So you end up being much more of a training manager, sorting out things, putting a few online stuff, still very much focused on the applications and Microsoft stuff. It was a 2-year contract, and I did get made permanent, but I saw an opportunity to go to another an online teaching company, and that was a really good one for me to really hone some Microsoft skills. So I became like a Microsoft master instructor over those first few years, but it was really good going into corporates and the training program for them, because I will never send anyone on a Microsoft Word course or an Excel course anymore. The way that they did that, and I'll shout that out to them, which is David Jackson at Ripped Orange. He runs that now. It was a pattern where you go and sit with the person, you ask them, what do you do? And then I will tell you the skills in Word and Excel and PowerPoint that you need to do. And you'd spend half an hour with them each week or, you know, on a pattern, and you would actually get them to open their documents and work on it. And it is just the most efficient and effective way teaching. If you go on a Word course, you can be there for a day and you can learn 10 minutes of stuff, maybe, you know, very few of them. So I'm definitely a one-on-one person, but I'm also focused on tell me what you do and I will help you to do that. So that was a really, really useful period, but it was an odd environment and it was time to change on that one. And so I found something which is more what I'm doing now, but for another employer, which I then stayed there for like 7 years. But I just felt like, you know, I wanted to do something a bit different. And we'd had the earthquakes and gone through the earthquakes with them. And there was an opportunity to be a project manager for Skirt Learning Legacy, which is the rebuild of the horizontal sort of infrastructure through the Quake Centre, which was part of the university. And I thought I was leaving to do a 20-hour-a-week, you know, job. And I thought, oh, that sounds rather nice. But that's never happened because Like-Minded as a business, it's grown up around me. The networking, the people they've come to me and said, can you do this, you know, for us? Can we start? And then I was joined by Hamish, my business partner, who was from the technical side. And what it did was it broadened, rather than me just offering the course development and instructional design element, we could add the technical element as well. And so we can give a broader end-to-end solution for our clients, and we'd worked together and we know we just hit it off. We're very different. I mean, I have to say that's the challenge and it's the bonus. Very different, but we you know, I don't know of any other business partnership that I've known well enough, maybe bar one, that is as good as ours. You know, anything goes wrong, we can talk to each other. You know, there are things that we need to work on. There always is going to be, but it's been a really good partnership that's made Like-Minded offer a lot more than it would have done if it was either one of us on our own. And we're going into our 9th year, so 10 years a big party, just letting you know that.
Nice. Give me the invite, get in early.
And it usually involves 2 beers. So it's it's like, I know it sounds strange to go from a progression from forensic science to where I am now, but it makes sense when you look at the little steps that I've taken. So from forensic science to training, to Microsoft training, So I couldn't be happier where I am now. You know, I'm trying to just pull back a little bit of that balance. So I'm now down to 4 days a week. So I have Wednesdays, and I'm feeling like that works for me, you know, at the moment. But we obviously have to put things in place to make sure that happens and doesn't impact on other people. So I mean, the exciting thing for us is we're working really hard on strategy and how to make the business long term more sustainable, because it's been very much dependent on us as key people. And I don't want it to be like that. I mean, you know, it's like I'm not going anywhere yet, but an exit plan takes, you know, 10 years. And I want to have the choice, even if I choose not to, and still be engaged, because when you talk about like my purpose is to make a good work environment for people, because I don't believe that youngsters have to prove themselves working 60 hours a week and cap in hand to their bosses and yes sir, no sir. And I get really annoyed when I see that. It's like, no, you're young, you want to be able to have time with your family, grow up. I still need to run a business, but the pleasure for me is watching that those people are getting a better early career than I've experienced or seen before. So it's that side of the business more than the bread and butter that we do. You know, we make it online learning, but now for me the pleasure is in building the people up, I think.
Nice. And so e-learning, that's probably I'm guessing has had a bit of an explosion after the little blip of the pandemic a couple of years ago.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Remember that thing? It was great fun.
Well, it has changed. the problem that we have is the fact that the tools are getting more and more available so people can do their own online learning. So rather than people coming to us to build stuff, they're doing it themselves. But the problem is that, and I use my example of a PowerPoint, because have you seen a good PowerPoint? And people go, oh, yes, yes, yes. And it's like, have you seen a bad PowerPoint? And they go, oh, thousands. Just because they have the tool doesn't mean they can build a good experience. So we're feeling that we're evolving a little bit in that area to be able to talk about best practice and the instructional elements. It's not taking, a video and plonking it up online. That's not e-learning. Putting in questions around it and build up and other stuff. So video is very passive, and there's no guarantee of retention. There's no pressure on people to listen and think. So we do quite a little bit of capability training more now than I would say than we did before. So that's the bit that I found for me has been time demanding because it's in my head. So we're actually, we still create stuff for people. We still build learning management systems and we help them with that user experience. And we're also looking in the space to be able to develop online courses to teach corporate teams how to create good online learning. So things like, what's the process, who are the people involved, what's the questioning, how do you do questioning, how do you do assessment, how do you do graphics and scenarios. So that's my current passion about it, is trying to build that to a place where we've got enough stuff to be able to put that out so that corporate e-learning teams can come to us for capability training that they can do mostly self-driven. And then we'll add mentoring option on top of that. If you want me to look at one of your, storyboards or one of your courses, or check it for accessibility and, that sort of thing, that we can maybe get into that, do that space. But it's about what we felt with the pandemic and the change that people were doing it themselves, is they were going off doing it because they were the person in the seat or the last one to say no. And the only other option, the only option for people is often a bit like a diploma or something through the universities, which takes months and takes more time. A corporate team needs to get up and running quickly, and actually they can evolve to be better and better over time. But the core essence of how to run an e-learning team. So we're targeting 3 audiences. One is the learning and development managers. How do you cost a project? How do you do that? The second one is people who are already in a team and want to upskill and show that they can do it. And the third one is people who are transitioning from a career. So say a lot of teachers want to move into online learning, but how do they show and prove to somebody that their skills can be transferable? And so that's exciting for us for this year. That if we can just get the critical quantity to get that out, it can grow. So we're looking forward to sort of launching some e-learning capability, really it is, because as I said, the big gap for me is the fact that people can do it. They can put it up, but they think they can do it just because they can put a video up, or just because they can use, a particular tool, when actually you're looking at it saying, where's your structure? Where's your scaffolding of learning? Where's your knowledge checks? And those that sort of language is not been taught to some people. So we'd like to be able to help.
Because online learning, it's a really interesting idea, because sometimes I find like there's some online learning that I've done over the years, and like I said, there's no, like, in terms of the retention, it's kind of, well, there might be some stuff that I'm gonna learn to utilize right now, great, and that kind of works. But I do remember when I was doing the medical stuff, there was a lot of online learning we had to do, and sales guys and girls will always find a workaround. And it's kind of like, have the videos playing somewhere to prove that I've watched it, and then I'll just have a go at answering the questions, and as long as I pass, I pass. Well, so whereas if you're sat in a room with a lecturer and a teacher, and then you have to take an exam that someone marks, but then how much do we learn anyway from taking exams? I mean, And
it's about using the tools that we've got together and clever. So although you say we're online learning, that's just what we do most of, and still believe very much in blended learning, because I think, and I get frustrated with the universities who I've just put the lecture up online, and then they complain that people don't go to their 8 o'clock lecture because they can watch it at 10. It's like, duh.
Have you met these people called students before?
I know. But I think the point is that people, in terms of the blending approach, what we like is for people to have some stuff that they can do in their own time, as many times as they like, because then this allows for the different needs for learning, differences.
Yep.
I can do it as many times as I like. So then when I go into the classroom or a workshop, which is probably the better way to describe it, that lecturer should be doing activities that build on what they've done in preparation. And they'll soon learn that they need to be prepared to get the most of that session.
Yep.
And then maybe they go away and they finish it, or in some of our cases, they'll go back to the workplace and their workplace supervisor will verify that they can actually do it. And a lot of these exams and tests, it's like if they're knowledge based, and obviously the common issue for us is AI, talking about AI. And I said, I don't see why it's a problem. Why don't you just build an assessment that AI can't solve? Because if I asked you to upload a video of you changing a tire, best will in the world, AI is not going to be able to do that for you. You're going to have to do it. So what we do is when we give them a knowledge check, so, you've learned what A, B, and C means. What does A stand for? What does B stand for? Of course you can do it. I mean, they're only teaching themselves, but there is a point where we're adult learners we're talking about. But I feel like for us, it's the cleverness of the tools that are available that makes the difference between good online learning and it's mixing those up so that people can't lean on the forward button and do it.
Yep. And I guess, that's the real benefit of online learning is, like you say, it can appeal to different learning styles. So I'm a very visual person. I like to watch, it being done, and then I can kind of go and give it a go. Whereas if I have to read a whole bunch of text, I'm going to get bored really, really quickly, and I'm going to have to read it 4 or 5 times for it to sink in. And then again, if I just hear the information, I definitely wouldn't retain as much as if I saw it. So which again, it seems to be the education system historically. We could go down the rabbit hole of modern learning environments, which would mean nothing to people outside. Well, I don't know. Is it hitting other countries? I don't know. I'm so disconnected from the education system outside of New Zealand. But even just historically, there seems to be very little thought given to how do different people learn. So
we have a mantra for all of our learning where and this comes from the work that I did a while back with training accountants, to be perfectly honest. But it's often we have these, that all these words and models in our industry, and I don't care about the model. The point is what I'm after. But we introduce a topic, then we develop it. So we explore it with them, showing them examples, giving them scenarios, and then we get them to apply it in their context. And that's the pattern that leads to the better retention. So I might talk to you about something. I might say, look, here's an example of Fred doing this in the workplace, and let me show you the video of him changing the tire or whatever. Now I want you to go and change a tire and film yourself doing it, or write down 5 points, steps that you went through and upload that, or get your supervisor to tick off watching you do it. And so by taking them right from the theory through, what the mistake that a lot of online learning does is it only delivers theory and it's just a push. It's like a lecture online. And if someone shows me that, it's like, that's not online learning, that's not learning in the online environment. Let me help you understand more. So that's where my passion is at the moment, is making people realize that it's not just about throwing stuff up on the web.
Which a lot of people are possibly doing.
And we have quite a big responsibility, I think, because sometimes if it's not so much now because most people have been exposed to online learning, but if we're building something and that's a person's first experience of online learning, if they don't like it, they're going to go around and say online learning's rubbish, it doesn't work, which is a generalization about the method, when actually it was just that we didn't implement it or do it properly. So I do try to get people realizing the responsibility they have if they're putting out an online course. This might be someone's first engagement online.
Well, it's the same with in-person training. I spent a year training to be a trainer, and then went out on my own, and have obviously worked with Mr. Philpott on advanced adult learning techniques in person. But even still, there's only so much you can do. When
lead a horse to water.
100%. Because if you're running an event where someone's been sent to the event, right, we think you need to learn this, well, you're up against it already, because that person might be very resistant by the very fact that it was that person that sent them on this course, through to, well, I don't need to be here because I know everything anyway. And then you can do everything that you can to impart some knowledge in a manner that will help retain information. So when I'm running workshops, I use the advanced adult learning techniques of using music, lots of interactivity, asking lots of questions, getting people to do activities, what have you, using bright happy images with basically using a little bit of sort of neuro linguistic programming to get people to remember and think stuff. But I think the big part for me with training is actually you need to go and apply it, because it's kind of, what is it? I think it's misattributed to lots of people. I think it was Edison is one person that's possibly misattributed it to, but ideas without actions are hallucinations. And I think that's the big challenge, is a lot of people kind of, don't actually go and implement. And it's like,
well,
listening to all these podcasts, it's like, get the information, write it down, go and do something with it. Otherwise it's just another.
What are you going to Well, so the tricks with us are, first of all, we're writing it in a way that they want to come to do it. It's like, because I remember asking somebody, and it was a university course we were going online, and I said, well, why do they need to do it? And she goes, very stern sort of approach. And she goes, because it's mandatory. And it's like, well, that's not going to win them over. Tell them how they're going to be different, how they're going to behave differently or be different, at the end of it. And then they're going to want to come on the journey with you. And then at the end, you're reinforcing that sort of thing. Can you see now how you can do things differently? What are you going to do? What are the 3 things that you're going to do from here? And we can, in online learning, we can connect that to managers so they could, put in, I'm going to do stop, start and keep sort of analogy. I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to keep doing this because I'm doing it really well. And they can email that to themselves or to the managers. And so you're creating a longer experience. Well, the mistake is people sort of say, I've done the online, I've done the first aid, in 1903. And it's like, so if I fell down in front of you, maybe your CPR wouldn't be quite the right version. So it's about keeping them going. And I mean, that's where we do things like expiry, and how do you get them to a refresher without and recognizing people's time. That's a big one these days. And for adults, there's the fact that I know you're doing it. Let's just give you quite a comprehensive question quiz scenario to write up something about. And if that's okay, then we'll pass you for the next 2 years. You don't need to go through
the whole
40 minutes of learning because you're only learning the same thing again. We want to check that you can apply it. So again, our assessment is probably a big area that we could improve on, because people don't assess the right thing. They assess knowledge, not application. So I enjoy talking about that, as you can tell.
No, it's all good. I mean, learning is so critical. I think, just being an eternal student is really vital, whether it's at work or just in life in general. Every day's a school day. There's always an opportunity. That's what I say to my staff. To learn something.
If you don't think you can learn and you're in the learning environment, you're in the wrong business, because you actually don't understand it. So, people in the learning environment should be looking for, what do I need to do next? If I was doing what I was doing 20 years ago, I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah. It's interesting how the world of training has kind of morphed over the years. I was listening to a podcast this morning. It was the same podcast, and they were saying, it's insane to think that it was probably only 20 years ago that we really started putting wheels on suitcases. Before that, you used to look like a 20-kilo suitcase. And as they said, imagine Neil Armstrong wheeling his luggage, to the spacecraft, and all these smart people, and no one in that building had figured to put a wheel on the bottom of a suitcase. And
hey, do you know what my thing is? Fitted sheets. Because I have long since been writing the size of the sheet, like a K or a Q, king size, queen size, single, in the bottom left-hand corner as you face the bed, so that I can put it on properly. And nowadays they're starting to sew labels in them, so I feel like I missed out on my marketing.
On that one, we gave away a duvet because we thought the duvet didn't fit the duvet sheet. Turned out we'd been putting the duvet in the sheet the wrong way, because it was a king and they're wider than they are longer. And we were like, why does this
hang on? You and my husband are at the same mall, because I'm saying to him, do you not realize it's a rectangle? You have to put it in the right way.
So,
oh Lordy, I didn't think there were 2 of you.
So there's 3 of us, because my wife was the same.
She didn't get
clearly there's work to be done in the sheet department as well.
But it's just one of those things you think that's just blindingly obvious. It's like, why did we not think of it? Because we don't put the time to thinking about it.
Because it's only every now and then when you're changing the sheets, it's an issue where it's not in your face every day, I guess. Well, some people maybe they do change the sheets every day. So you talked about purpose a little bit before. So business for good. Obviously, you are a B Corp, which is why we're talking to you. I would suggest that forensic science, helping solve crimes, there's quite a lot of meaning and purpose in that. were you kind of aware of it being meaningful and purposeful?
No,
Or
I
was it was
honestly
just a
don't
job?
think. I think I'm a different person here. I mean, it served my purpose because I was a puzzle and a whatever person, but I don't think I thought about it in the broader
Mm.
sense quite as much. Not when I went into it or did it, because to be honest, I feel like as I've got older or had the experience of working for people who don't look after everybody, whether it's client or worker or whatever. And I said to somebody, on my wall, which you can't see up here, I've got my dad's a piece of paper, which is my dad's obituary. Like not the obituary, it was like the message they sent around when he died around
Yeah.
work. And when you read it, it's me, you know, it sort of says he ruffled a few feathers and he didn't suffer fools gladly, but you know, his heart was in the right place.
Yeah.
And my mum said to me when I sort of said to him like, oh, I don't know why I do this, you know, I run the business the way I do now. And she said it's so like your dad, you know, it's exactly what he did, but I never knew that at the time.
Yep.
But someone else said to me, it's like, I said, I don't know why this is important to me at the time. You know, I hadn't really worked through it as well as I have now. And she said, you're doing everything that you struggled with as an employee.
Right.
So, you know, it's like you're asking me. I mean, I remember somebody saying, you know, they were being resourced 80 hours in a week and they were in tears about it. And I just remember saying so clearly, looking at, you know, the manager and saying, I don't want to work for a company that does that to people. And, you know, and then you know, as I say, it's just, I feel now a responsibility and a privilege to be able to manage that environment better for people. So if, for example, you're earning 80 hours a week, I should be employing a second person. Whereas when you're an employee, you can't change that.
Yeah. But
for me, it's like, if you're working 50, 60 hours a week, it's as wrong as if you're working 30 hours a week, you know, as in, you know, if you're rostered for full time or time for full time. So I feel like as I've grown, the things that have had an impact on me, I've unpicked them and worked out. And what it is about that work environment. And that's why what happened is the story of it really to get into B Corp is the fact that I left to be able to start to manage those things. And as I was doing it, I got introduced through Kath from Eagle. No, not Kath, sorry, it was through Durenda Britain, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I went along to a talk that Steve from Eagle Protect was doing about B Corp. And that was a penny dropping moment for me. It's like, this is the framework for everything I'm currently doing. So everything I'm doing now is, you know, this percentage of it, but this framework can help me improve on things. Things like processes were in my head, they weren't documented. I wasn't always being as transparent for you know, things like finances and how we operate and how we govern. Clients, you know, it was always important to me to make sure they got good value for money because that was the place I was coming from where I felt they were profit over purpose, shall we say. And so it's my responsibility. If somebody comes, we quote them for, you know, a job that's $5,000 and it costs us $2,000, no way will I be charging them $5,000. Whereas profit over purpose, people say, but they signed for $5,000. It's like, yes, and I was responsible for dealing them a bad quote or circumstances have changed. So when I listened to Stephen talking about it, I felt like I've got a real framework. And because again, at the time I was more on my own about developing the company. So where do you go for help? The one thing again about a learning person is the fact that you know that you don't know it all. So you look to surround yourself by mentors and coaches and using models and framework to help you get better. And so what happened is the B Corp just knitted into what we were doing, but gave us places to improve, things to do, you know, guidelines on how to look after people better or be more transparent, even if it wasn't always comfortable, you know. And you know, it's the robustness of the B Corp assessment that I like because having got it is the biggest achievement. For me, getting B Corp is bigger than getting any awards for e-learning development and courses. I'm not a big fan of that because often it's people in the industry patting each other on the back, if that's a nice way to say it. I mean, there's some good recognition. I love the recognition of it. But to me, to be a business for good, that I can hand on heart say, I look after my people, or I try to do it, don't always get it right, but try to look after the people. That to me is the most significant achievement. of the whole of our 9 years. And the first time we got it, to be honest, I've done most of it on my own. Small company. I think that's quite a good message for people, is because we often look at these big companies that do it, have got hundreds of people and things. It was a company of, 6 people, and I filled in most of the stuff, myself over time, or had to create it because the question asked for it documented and I had it documented. So it took us a long time, and Kath from Eagle Protectors was great with a boot behind me saying, just submit it, will you? And we've learned that submitting at your 80% or whatever you think you're at, then there was so much help from B Corp to get you over the line without compromising the quality of what it meant to get over the line. Because to me, the most important thing is I am not doing any of this to get a B Corp tick. I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing to do. And the B Corp tick is a bonus, but I'm not going to do anything just to get another point if it doesn't fit with where the business is going. But 99% of the time, it's a good recommendation on how to be better or do better.
Yeah, 100% agree. And that's a question we often get asked as well. We're too big, we're too small. I always say no. It's about mindset and intent. If you want to, and that's why we call our B Corp coaching program Be Better. It's like use the B Corp framework to be a better business. For some it's going to be more of a workload because you're not behaving like a B Corp. But I think that's the your values were shining through by the fact that you were operating mainly like a B Corp. And again, it's not always easy to do good. There are tensions, and we're not all, this is your first business that you've run. This is my first business that I've run. There's plenty of mistakes we're going to make, but I think in general, as per your message on your dad, your heart's in the right place. I'm trying to do the best that I can with what I've got, and I'm not always going to be perfect at doing
and
that.
I think that's important when we look at the names of the people, because I know there was a lot of hoo-ha about a certain coffee company getting recognition when the reputation was, for not being good. But I remember saying it, it was at one of our B local meetings. It's like, hang on a minute, at least this company is standing up and saying, please hold me accountable. I can do better. And we only go on the minimum piece of information we know. We don't actually know that, a coffee cup actually has a bigger carbon footprint than a capsule, because we have this assumption. So I just feel like, that it's a fact of anybody who goes into B Corp says, hey, I'm really happy for outside people to hold me accountable. And I think that's what I want to make sure that assessment stays as robust as it is, that it's not about numbers and getting people through by lowering any standard at all, because anybody who's gone through the assessment, it's long, I would say, rather than complex. I would say it's long, and there's a lot of areas to address. But it's not there to trip you up. If you look at every question, it's got a real benefit too, whether it's customers, workers, or whatever. So, I don't want to see that coming down. Sometimes it's hard. Some of the questions don't allow us to get points where I feel, we could, just in terms of, the way the business works. But we're covering such a range of businesses. And look, at the end of the day, I mean, we've just put in our recertification, and we were only at 81.7 when we first certified. We're hoping to be over 100 for this next one. And that's in the 3 years we've used that improvement plan to carry on ticking off and changing some things to get better. I hope. Perfect. I don't know. I'll tell you soon. It's been submitted. We'll wait and see.
But, fingers crossed for you.
Yeah. Well, we worked up rehab. Now I've got Elizabeth's helping as well, so it's quite nice to share the load a little bit. And having gone through it once, I think it's really good to just get someone who's done it to reassure you. And for us, the way we chose to do it was tackle 5 areas, tackle a topic a month. So we do the workers, and we do everything, and then we do the assessment, and we rectify where we thought we could improve, upload the evidence, and then the next month we look at the next one, like community. What are we doing there? So it's about biting it off in the bite-sized chunks. If you look at the whole questionnaire, it could be daunting to some people. So I would just recommend that you take it one area at a time and focus on, where do you think you're good at? Get those ones written up, because where you're not good at it, like say if you haven't done a lot in the community, you can, go into that and focus maybe a month or even 2, because you've got plenty of time. But I go back to kick up the backside. Just get it done and get it in, and they will help you if you're not using a B Corp consultant, of course.
Indeed. Yes, it's I mean that it's it's a great impact guide. That's one of the big things we sort of say to people if they're sitting on the fence about B Corp. It's like you don't know what you don't know, so you use it. And yeah, it's not perfect. It's not the world's perfect framework, but it's the best that I can see. And it will just give you that the ability to illuminate areas of the business that you haven't considered before, more than likely. And then, like you say, it's structured. You can kind of go, well, okay, if we want to be better here, these are the 5 things that we can look at doing. Do we all want to do those things as a company? Okay, well, let's.
And I've had that as a conversation with people. So it's like saying, well, B Corp, we were here before B Corp, or what, why do we have to do it this way for B Corp? And it's like, well, because it's like anything. If you look at an example, or a model, or a guidance from somebody, or you listen to somebody talking, saying, hey, that's really good and that'll help me. And actually, all that it was is it sat over what we were doing already and crystallized that we were doing the right things in some areas and we'd forgotten about some other areas. So it's not that we're doing B Corp to be B Corp, as I say, I really enforce that. It's just the fact that it's my best help to be better and do better. And the consequence of that is, and what I can do to show other people is get that certification tick. And it makes a difference to you, sort of your clients. If you're a B Corp, you've got more likelihood of people coming, to you because of that, even if they're not B Corps. I mean, I had this conversation, we had the local yesterday, and we stayed on for groups, and I had a conversation. It's like, I think if B Corps only ever work with B Corps or talk to people in B Corps, they get a full sense of the world. And how are we going to influence the people? So I think we should work with non-B Corps and lead by example.
Totally.
It's like saying I'm not going to work with anybody if they don't align with the values. It's different if they're not even aligning with the values and they're treating staff like crap. But I think it's really important for us as B Corps to be out there in the normal working environment, because people will look and say, why are you different? Why are your staff happy? Why are you not having a high turnover? It's because of this framework. Why don't you look at it with me?
100%. Yeah, and that's I agree. It's as I said on the event yesterday, it's like B Corps need to be having the best party on the street so that everyone else on the block is going, wow, what's the secret sauce down there? Like, why is everyone loving working with them? Why do customers rave about them? Why does everyone want to come hang out with them? And I think, it's at the it's quite a potentially dry, boring framework, in and of itself. But if you activate it, if you bring the team on the journey, and then
what does it mean for me? Transparency. What does it mean we have to do? Looking after our workers. What does it mean we have to do? And it's like, if you're in doubt, have a conversation with your workers, because you'll find what is it. What is it that's going to make it better to stay here or work here? And I mean, if it's because I actually want to be paid 5 times what the job's worth, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about that with people. If they're not on the same wavelength, that's the secret, I think, in the interviewing, is are people there to have that deeper purpose in working than just paying the bills. We all want to pay the bills, but do you want to do it at any cost?
Totally. And I think you can see that, you can sense like the real companies with real purpose that are B Corp. There's an energy there that that's lacking in the opposite. So I think it all sort of feeds into.
And having said that, it's actually hard. It is hard when there's a couple of you really engrossed in doing the B Corp and things like that. That's a challenge for us to make sure everyone else feels as excited and on board as we are. That's a hard one for us at the moment, just to make sure we have the time and energy to get everybody else in the same excited position that we are.
No, that's cool. So was it anything unexpected, or any highlights on over this recertification journey?
No, I was just excited that we'd moved on so far without.
So that's pretty good. Well,
I think it was without thinking about it from the points perspective. We've been slowly improving things and adding things, and one of the issues that we had in the last certification was the fact that we're education, but because we deliver to the client and the client then distributes the learning, we don't get to ask the learners feedback and respond to feedback. And so we weren't getting the points for what we actually do, because the client was happy. The client was giving us testimonials and rave reviews, but because it wasn't coming directly from the learner, And so they'll buy a, we'll develop a course for them, we'll give it to them, they'll distribute it. And if they feel like they want to change in 6 months, 12 months, very few of them will engage us to be part of that evaluation process because they've got their own learning and development team. So that's something where sometimes the shape of the impact assessment is challenging, because it's like, look at what we do in the real world. The client's feedback should be able to compensate, but it was the difference between getting points or not getting points. So thankfully we've got enough over to not worry about that. And what we've done is we've just asked our clients to give us 3 examples of some feedback from the courses, and we can put that in. But we don't have the control over redoing a course. If feedback came back and said question 5 is ambiguous, not our call. So that was hard. I think, as I say, I was just pleased that we've scored some, and we've actually put it in, to be honest, we've put it in at 120 points.
Wow.
But I played the simple thing. Let's assume they take off at least 10. Let's assume 20, because 81 to 100 would be a really, really good measure anyway. So some of those, they might come back, and it's, you have to be prepared for that, and that's actually fine. You put it in, it comes back usually 10 points lower than you think, because you don't get the mark. But they really did help me last year to sort of say, well, here's one you could probably, all you need to do is upload your policy. We didn't have a breastfeeding policy in the office. 5 lines and it's done. And it's like, actually, we would let people do that, and we would have a policy if somebody needed it. We just never written one down. So in that respect, you're sort of saying, well, actually, what my intentions are all there, but I do need the evidence for B Corp, because otherwise, if we all say, we'll do that, we'll do that. It's not as robust enough for me. So I want them to maintain the robustness of the assessment. But sometimes it's a little bit frustrating that you can't quite get the marks because it's not quite there. I mean, the amount of hassle we had just trying to change our water, to low flow and things like that when you're renting. You see, when you're renting an office, you don't have the control over the environment as much either. So you can never score the points in that. So when we did the assessment, we went through and we looked at all the questions and we marked off any that we'd never change. So say we don't have an advisory board at the moment, so that's not going to happen in this sign-off year. So we bookmarked everything, took off the ones that we could never go back to, and when we finished ones and we knew we'd answered the question, uploaded our evidence, took the bookmark off that, and that way you're just ticking slowly through the assessment without it thinking you've got to sit for 3 days just doing assessment.
That's a really smart way of doing it. Chipping away at it over the time. And I mean, that's our advice to everyone is always, be bullish, claim the points, knowing that you think you've got evidence to support it, because it's better for the auditor to say, no, you haven't got those, rather than for you not to declare them, because the auditor isn't going to go through every question and say, oh, but are you sure you're not doing this? Or you're not doing that? So it's better to be, I always say it's better to be bullish and be told no, rather than don't declare it.
So many people have laughed at me for my preparation, because I go through the assessment and I answer the question, I put the evidence in, and then I answer the next question, I put the evidence in, where a lot of people go and answer the question and wait to be asked for the evidence. So for me, I found it much easier to say, I'm really confident this is us. This is my evidence. If it's not enough, we'll have the conversation. But then I didn't have to go find all the evidence later. And they laugh, because it's like most people just put most of it in, maybe upload the financials and then wait for the questions to come back, but kind of most of it was there for him, when he looked at it.
It's that forensic scientist in you, all the detail.
I think it is, I think it is.
Which is good. Which is good to know that that's how you used to operate as a forensic scientist, rather than I'm pretty sure he did it.
Well, evidence-based, that's exactly where I go to. It's like, evidence. You asked me this question, I'm telling you, and this is why I'm saying it's right, But it is easy. It's easy to find it while it's fresh in your mind, and then maybe he won't. The assessor won't come back and ask that question, because the real problem is if he came back with 20 questions and you had to then go and find the documents to prove it. It's more time-consuming, and you have to get back into it. So as we go through the questions, we build up a folder with all of the evidence in. And that's really easy then for us to go and find it again, rather than, financials is the pain. I hate financial side of things.
Same. Me and Zero don't get on. Just don't. It's like, anyway.
It pays you.
So what does being a B Corp mean to you? You said it was, more important to you than any industry accolades.
if I'm remembered for anything, I don't want to be remembered to being a good e-learner. I would remember that I look after people. And as I said, that's the bit that's the same with my dad. He was always, he was strong and firm, but people were always at the heart. And it's not at the expense of being a good business, because at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not going to give you, 50 days of annual leave because that's a really nice thing to do, because I'm not going to be earning the money. Be able to pay it. I can't, who's paying this? We have conversations like that, and it's like, so I think if people, if people have worked, it's like one of my legacies is that there was a girl that really wasn't in the right place, and because of the type of work, and we had a conversation, and we decided that she really needed to resign and go and find something different. And as she left that meeting, she said, "You're still the best boss I've ever had." It's like, I've just told you you've not got your job, and we've just agreed you've not got your job anymore, and yet I'm still the best boss. So to me, that's my biggest accolade, is the fact that I can still do difficult conversations, but with my evidence and things like that, I think. But I just want more people to not get into that stressed and troublesome situation and become leaders through that without having the stress and the burnout that's attached to it. And I feel really privileged that that's my responsibility as a business owner. So being a B Corp helps me, because it's someone else's voice saying she's doing what she says she's doing. Otherwise, we can just say we're being nice, but who's to measure what nice is? So it's really the validation of the way that we're running it.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's super cool, and the fact that I feel like there's probably more bosses that need to be able to have better conversations with, because I think that's part of the problem with the modern malaise of the modern world, is that there's so many people trapped in jobs that they don't like doing, that they're not that good at, that their boss feels like they can't go back and tell them, like, you shouldn't be here, because that's just the whole can of worms or Pandora's box that no one wants to open.
It is a it's a minefield because of the constructive dismissal. But if you have the right sort of conversation, I watched a webinar the other day that is just a really useful tool. When people are not performing, you have 4 pieces of paper. The first thing is, okay, we're not performing, or it's not reaching the standard we're expecting for that role. What do you need to do in the next 90 days to make me not have to say that? And the second paper, so they write it down. The second paper is, what can I do as a manager to help you be able to achieve those things in the 90 days? They write that down. The third paper is, what's a small reward? Do you want some cinema voucher if we get there in 90 days? Should I buy you a meal or a cinema voucher, or do you want an extra day off or whatever? And the fourth one is, what happens if you don't get there? And they write that down. And often they're writing their own, if I don't get there, I need to look for something different or something more suitable. So you write all that stuff down, and you, this is going to more coaching, but you write all that stuff down and you sign it. And so actually what happens is it stops that being a difficult situation. It's like, look, well, we talked about it. We've got 90 days to do these things. I've done everything I can to help you. And you've either paper 3 you've done it, or paper 4 you haven't. And paper 4 said, if you don't get there, maybe you're going to question whether this is the right role for you, and it stops you being in that dangerous position of trying to suggest that they go elsewhere.
Great. Well, there you go. Top 3 coaching advice. Although we should also just quantify and qualify # nothing that you've heard is legal advice or HR advice. Cathy or Nora or I are legal or HR advisors or trained such things. Blah blah blah.
That's good cover.
So what does the future look like? Hopefully a second time B Corp. Go you. But what's the future look like for Like-Minded and Cathy?
Well, we're focusing on strategy because we've been really good at being in the business but not on the business. And one area that we struggle with is that accountability, and we talk about and plan what we're going to do, but doing it. So I want both Hamish and I to spend a lot more time on planning the strategy and making sure we have our quarterly targets, not targets in money, but targets of, we want to have had 1 more member of staff, we want to have done this, we want to have got the course out online or something. So We've reached the point where in 9 years, I think that Hamish and I have reached a point where we can't take the business further without, this is my perception, can't take the business further without some external help from people who do this all day, every day in terms of making the business far more sustainable if Hamish and I weren't in it, which gives us a better balance, because sometimes you get sucked in and you think I'm the only one that can do this, when it's not actually true. You just need to do some extra steps to get there. So that's really what our plan is for the next sort of 5 or 6 years, is to focus particularly on how this business, we're not particularly excited about becoming global domination with 100 employees. It's not something that, we've got a good income from it. We just want to reduce some of the pressures and stresses that we have on it being dependent on myself and Hamish as individuals, key individuals. So that's really, I think over the next 5 years, we'd love to be in a position where there are more people who are taking away some of that job, and it leaves us doing the bits we really enjoy,
Nice.
I mean, I still like mentoring and helping people, so I'm looking at opportunities for more mentoring in the ATD, that type of zone. They have mentors and things, and the capability training. I'd love to keep being a consultant advisor to companies to run their own internal learning teams better. So I don't want to lose that part of it, because that gives me a buzz. But yeah, we're not going to be world dominators, but we want more stable clients that work with us long term. How do we do that? Tapuking has been a really interesting change for us, because a lot of the entities that are out there building learning and using learning platforms will change with all of that work of them coming under the one umbrella. So that will no doubt have an impact on the learning industry, and we're part of that. So yeah, I think it's really I think it's exciting. I'm excited in my own personal position. Now I've done a lot more leadership training. I'm wanting to hone that skill. I think maybe one day I might be sort of like wanting to do more boards and advisory stuff, maybe. If you talk about future, I don't know, and I'm not there yet. I've got about 5 years of still working on the business before I've got time available to do that. But I'm 4 days a week now. I have told Hamish I want to be 3 days by 2025.
Nice.
See if that happens, and then I can do stuff but not get bored at home. I don't want to be a gardener or anything, because I said my purpose is to help people build people up, make their environment good. So how am I going to do that if I'm retired at the moment? It doesn't go. I've still got a lot to give the younger generation in my industry. And so that's really what I want to make sure I'm doing.
Nice. Well, I have no doubt that with your sense of exploration and general fluidity of following your nose to amazing projects and places, that it will be something cool that you'll end up doing. Cathy, it's been really cool. If people want to get hold of you, we'll put some links to Like-Minded Learning and what have you. But yeah, no, really cool. And I don't think I'm ever going to top a story about people jumping on the Queen's bed, to be honest. I think you've broken the podcast in terms of stories. So thank you so much.
No worries. They're the usual dinner party stories. People like to hear something about forensic science. Shame they're not as interested in learning as they are in forensic science. Cool.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
We'll get them there.
No, thank you for having me on. It's a great opportunity.
No worries. All right. Hey, it's Tim here, that B Corp bloke from Grow Good. If you want more content on purpose, B Corp, how to do more good in the world as an individual or a business, then you know the drill. Hit the like and subscribe. Check out some of our other videos. They're probably floating around here somewhere. You know how it works. Thank you so much. See you next time.